Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's Podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Bennett, and this is episode 141. It's June the 7th. We're taping it on 2024. And our guest today is a former teacher, counselor, business person extraordinaire, mother and grandmother, Kathy Zaferatos. Welcome, Kathy.
Thanks.
Tell me a little bit about your mom and dad. Are you both Lebanese?
Both are Lebanese, yes. My dad was born in Kafir, Lebanon, and came to America when he was like in his early 20s. And my mother was born in Charleston, West Virginia, but both of her parents were born in Lebanon.
Did they meet each other and fall in love? Was it arranged or what?
I don't know about if arranged, but Dad came to Beckley, West Virginia because his older brother was here. And so my mom's family was in Charleston. Not sure what brought them to Beckley, but they came to Beckley, and my mother ended up working for my dad's older brother in a little restaurant called Ramey's Grill that was at the bottom of Neville Street, and I guess they kind of met there.
And your mother was a Michael?
Was a Michael,
okay.
Yes.
And who was the brother that owned Ramey's Grill?
Faze. His name was Faze, and he was the oldest brother.
Okay.
My dad was the middle, and then he had a younger brother named Fred.
About what year did your dad come over here?
In the 40s.
40s.
In the 40s, maybe late 30s, early 40s. My parents got married in 1940. So,
what did he first do when he came here? Okay, you know.
He, I guess, but I'm not real sure. I guess he worked with his brother initially. I just know when he worked with his brother at the restaurant, Mom worked there. They ended up getting married, and they opened up a little bus that was like a restaurant at the end of Neville Street across from the church down there.
Oh, they were the ones that opened it.
Yeah, I don't know if they originally opened it. They worked there, owned it, and ran that. My mom used to say when she was pregnant with me, she would cook like those lunches or whatever, and whenever they had liver as their special, she'd be behind the grill cooking it, and it'd make her sick. So she'd go get sick and then come back and cook some more. And so I never liked the smell of liver, and that's what she blamed it on. So I don't. So I'm not sure.
I ate sandwiches there a couple of times, but I can't remember what the name of it was then. It was there for a while. You were active. Your family was active in the St. Nicholas.
Very active, yes. They were one of the original. My dad was more active than my mom, but they were one of the first ones to get it started. When it opened, it was just a basement, and they had church services in the bottom part of the church, and then a Safeway hall, I think, was what I always heard was very instrumental in helping to build the upstairs part. And so the church opened up there, but initially it was down in the bottom.
Now I can remember seeing when you and your husband Jerry, you guys actually met. You guys were only like 4 or 5 years old, and were in a Christmas play called The Story of Christmas. And how old were you?
I was probably he's a year older, so I'd say he was probably 7 or 8, and I was probably 5 or 6, and Wow. He was like a shepherd, and I was an angel. But we were all kind of like family. Our whole family went there, so my cousins were all in it, and so yeah.
Now you had older sister Ruth.
I had 3 older sisters. I'm the baby. Yeah. So my older sister's Jean, and then I had Elaine, and then Ruth. They've all passed away though.
Oh really?
I just lost my oldest sister 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think Ruth was a year or two older than me. I'm
1950.
I'm 74.
She'd be what? She was born in 1950. Yeah, she was
Well, she'd
right.
be about the same age, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
Okay.
She had multiple sclerosis and struggled her whole life, and actually passed away early at the age of 48.
Oh,
kind of sad.
When did your parents take over the Kitty and Junior shop?
So they had this restaurant, and then my mother's older sister, Rose, had the Kitty shop, and it was on Neville Street. And she passed away, and so my parents took it over and started running it. And I don't remember, that's before I was born. And then they decided to expand, and they moved the store up to Main Street and called it the Kitty and Junior Shop. And they expanded their inventory to, for teenagers then. But it was boys and girls clothes and boys and girls shoes. And our competitors was the baby shop. The Bashers had the baby shop, and they were like 3 doors down from us. So, but they just did baby clothes, and we did the junior clothes. So we had a little bit of an advantage.
Did you ever see Jerry walking around town?
Yeah, we used to like play together. We didn't like each other, but yeah, we actually, when we were younger, like the Swan was on one side and the kitty shop was on the other, and we'd go play in the fire escapes over at, whatever it was called, Raleigh County National Bank at the time. We'd play on the fire escapes and stuff like that together. But
because your parents owned a clothing store, you got to be a model for the Lions Club a little bit.
Yeah, you did.
How many years? I know there was a couple.
Well, and even Jerry got to be in it one time, I think. He got dressed up. But yeah, I didn't realize then, I guess, but, I always had nice clothes, because they weren't free, but they were reduced price. But yeah, I always felt like, I remember wearing little dresses and frilled out and stuff, and cute little shoes and ruffled socks and stuff like that. Yeah.
Now, when you went to Woodrow, you were in honor society.
Yes.
And what other things were you involved with?
I did the drama club.
Future Teachers
of America. That's about it, I think. I don't know.
Were you in a sub-deb club?
Was in a sub-deb club. We started the sub-deb club. It was called Delta, just Delta Club. And a group of young girls, and Sue Ann Webb at the time, we asked her to be our sponsor, and she had just graduated from college. She was probably like 21 or 22, and we took advantage of that poor lady. All us girls, we took advantage of her, but she was a good lady.
Were there any teachers that had an influence on you that stands out? Or
well, Miss Wilhoit or Miss Webb, Sue Ann Webb, and then Mr. Trent, I loved him. Nelson Cook. I was in a motorcycle wreck when I was in 10th grade.
With Linda Hente.
With Linda, we called her Lulu. And it was one of those, it was a little Honda 50. And, I called my mom, because I was a good girl, can I ride with Lou on the back of the motorcycle? And it was one of those, yeah, I'll let you, but don't tell your dad kind of thing. And so we're going up what used to be called Valley Drive. And an elderly gentleman didn't see our motorcycle and sideswiped us. And so we both got thrown off the motorcycle, didn't have helmets on because it was like the day before they were required in West Virginia, and both broke our left leg. So we were in the hospital side by side at Appalachian Regional Hospital in traction because we chose not to get a body cast. And so the end of the year, it was like in May, and actually Nelson Cook was the only one that would let me take my final exam in the hospital. And he was a new teacher. He was, I guess, trying to be strict or something, but so I didn't do well in geometry that year and had to retake it. But yeah, wow. 6 weeks in the hospital. And actually that's when Jerry's younger brother was born. His mother was down the room, but we weren't dating or anything then, but his mother was down the room having a baby, and we're in another room with traction.
Well, that's right around the time Jerry got caught with 3 or 4 guys on a motorcycle.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So have y'all ever owned a motorcycle since?
We have, actually, and we went down a couple times. Well, actually, just one time bad, but yeah, we bought a Harley and, did the crazy thing for a couple years and decided we survived it, we need to quit.
That's the reason I owned 2 at one time, smaller bikes, Yamaha and Hondas, and about 15 years ago, a bunch of my buddies decided to get bigger bikes, and they were going to ride every weekend. And I said, no, I'll be dead. It will kill me. And most of them sold theirs within 6 months to a year. They got tired of it.
We did some crazy things, but it was fun. Good memories, but yeah.
It seemed like I remember seeing, before I really even knew you that well, I seen your name in a paper a lot with weddings. It was like a hard burger. That's back when you were a sub-deb club or something. Debbie Hartbarger or something. You don't remember that one. And then there was Rick Severino.
I was back in Rick's. We got voted best friends in high school back in the day. And like, if you look at the picture's really weird back then in the 70s because we were hippies. And we went to college together. She helped me, encouraged me to go to WVU. So we were roommates for 2 years. And her and Rick were dating, and then they decided to get married. So she left me, and so I stayed at WVU. But yes, I was in her wedding. I was in my cousin's wedding. I was in Lou's sister's wedding.
They used to put them in the paper. They'd tell what the maid of honor was wearing and all this stuff.
You didn't have to pay. Like, now you have to pay by the word or by the letter or whatever. So it could be elaborate.
Did you graduate from WVU?
I did.
In counseling?
No, my undergraduate was elementary education with special ed as a minor, and then went back and got our master's in elementary counseling. Yeah. Now,
your mom's family, one of the brothers owned Freddie's restaurant. Mm-hmm. Freddie Michael.
Freddie.
And now, who are his children?
Okay, so my mom had 6 brothers and sisters. So Freddie was older. And his children are Diane, Valerie, Michelle, and Carolyn. Michelle passed away 12 years ago. She had cancer. And we all grew up like family. We were a very close family. So he had Freddie's restaurant, but not initially. He had a fruit stand that was on the corner of Prince Street and North Canal Street when we were younger. And then they moved over to Main Street and opened up Freddie's restaurant. And then a guy named Fred that used to work at the restaurant at Murphy's bought it, and that was a big deal because they didn't have to change the name. He still called it Freddie's. So he had the restaurant. And then Johnny had a fruit market out on the bypass. I think maybe initially when they were younger, my Uncle Freddie, my Uncle Alec, my Uncle Johnny, that was all the boys, had a Michael market, and that's the one that was on the corner. And then Uncle Freddie opened up the restaurant. Johnny opened up a store out on Eisenhower Drive, just called Johnny's Market. It was like a fruit market. And Alex, I think, I don't know what he did.
Now, Diane, she and I went to school together.
Okay.
We were in the same grade. She graduated in 68, I think. Then there was Johnny Jr., I guess. He was about a year or so ahead of me. And they lived down there at the time beside where the fire department
Right, Third Avenue.
Yeah.
That's where my grandmother lived with them. I never knew any of my grandparents except for my grandmother, my mother's mother. They'd all passed away after I was born. But so my grandmother's, I think that was their house possibly where my mom grew up. And so Uncle Johnny lived there with her. And then Uncle Freddie, had that. Then my Aunt Butch, her name was Lorena, opened up the supper club back in the day. I was too young, but I'd go there, and all the college kids and high school kids, it was there on North Canal there, underneath WJLS, and then she later opened up Arabian High.
I spent a lot of time in the supper club right out of high school, and Butch, we called her.
Butch.
How did she got the name Butch?
Well, my cousin Valerie and I were just talking about that, and I was supposed to call my cousin Sandy and ask her, but I didn't. So my grandparents owned Michael Market on Neville Street back in the 40s, I guess. And at that time, actually, Robert C. Byrd was the butcher at that store, and he'd bring his fiddle. They said, I was too young, I wasn't born, but so he actually got work there, and I think my aunt Lorena or Aunt Butch worked with him, maybe, we think. I don't know. But so everybody just called her Butch. Everybody loved Aunt Butch.
Well, she would, that was the hangout for college, Beckley College students and stuff. And it was a small, very small
like a dungeon.
area.
Like I remember walking down these little steps and into a dungeon.
And they would pack them in on like Thursday nights. They would have like quarter draft beer, and I mean it would be wall to wall, and you couldn't move. And they had a big old bouncer called Ernie Lightfoot. And if anybody out there remembers him, he was a big boy and he was tough. and I think he came from New Jersey or somewhere, but you really didn't want to get on his bad side.
Yeah.
But Butch was very nice to her. She would try to act grumpy with you, but she was the sweetest thing in the world. Everybody loved her.
Everybody loved Aunt Butch.
And if you came in there and you was a college student, you didn't have no money, she'd take care of you. You know, it was just and she would have a 3-person band on Thursday nights, and it was Paul Ragland, George Campbell, and David Lyons, and I think they split $50 or whatever. It may not even been that much, but they played every Thursday, and of course Friday and Saturday it was packed anyway. But and then she opened the Arabian Hut.
Yeah, but before that, I was going to say my cousin Sandy. She thought she was Cher. She was beautiful. My cousin was beautiful, but she'd have the long black hair. And back in the day, I guess it Go-Go Girls or whatever, she was one of the first, supposedly, that got in a cage in her little white boots, and she'd dance in the cage at the supper club. Do you remember that? Did you ever see her dance?
I'm not sure. It was always too crowded. Yeah. I would have remembered Sandy, I think, dancing. But, they had them down at the El Cid,
right.
And then they had them up on the Harper Road.
At Raleigh, and Girls in the Cage dancing
but it was, I always heard they closed the supper club because of fire marshal.
Right.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, there was only one way in and one way out.
Yeah.
And so it was a fire hazard. So I remember kind of when Aunt Butch decided she wanted to open up the Arabian Hut. She was a good cook, but not, she'd never cooked like that before. And my mom was her older sister. And, I remember Mom thinking like she's crazy because she was opening up like, off the beaten path on South Fayette Street. But, if you're good, people come. But she opened it up and had a great big camel, cut out cardboard camel in the parking lot. And people would take pictures there. And she was very, very successful. It was like beyond. Who would think people, and every Sunday she would cook a Lebanese meal, like a home-cooked meal, and people would come to eat that. And she did a lot of the cooking, and she trained a lot of people, too, to learn how to cook, but she had like the tabbouleh and baklava, and on Sundays she'd make kibbeh and cabbage rolls or just different things that would bring the people there. And then she opened up the bar, which she had the upstairs that was like fine dining, and then downstairs was like a bar more so. Yeah. People would go
they
to.
didn't have too many elite, or if any, elite restaurants around. Not too many. I think the Char, if it was open, it might have been still uptown.
It was. And people, you would get them confused at times, like Aunt Butch and Aunt Lorenz. They'd get that part confused, but they were kind of competitors. But
you had the Spaghetti House out at Bradley area. People would go that direction, and I think that family kind of ended up at Pasquale's or something later on. But it was I can remember the Arabian Hut. We ate down there a few times, and then downstairs Dave Burns. I think it was him and Sandy.
They got married.
They were married.
They were married. And he ran the bar downstairs. Yeah.
We go down and see him.
She'd have an old guy named Count on weekends play the piano. So it was, and then Rudy Green was the bartender upstairs. Yeah. People had, he just...
Now, Rudy worked at Black Knight too.
I think so, yeah.
And now, your first teaching job,
First, I was actually just telling this story the other day. My first teaching job was at Hollywood. So Jerry and I got married in 1977, and I graduated from college. He was already working at Coal City. So when I graduated, in May, and school was still going on, so I was able to substitute a little bit, and I substituted some out at Coal City. It wasn't at the new school; it was at the old school. They hadn't opened up yet. So John Hartzog was my principal at Central Elementary. He later became superintendent of schools. So when I applied for the school to be a teacher, I remember talking with him, and he goes, "Now, Kathy, like this pile of papers, these folders, these are people that applied for jobs, teaching jobs. This pile of people from Raleigh County that he's going to look at." He said, "But now this pile are people that I had at Central Elementary." And he said, "They'll get a job." So all the new schools, elementary schools, were just opening up when I got out of college in 1977. they first sent me to a place out like at Richmond District, Pluto Road, and I was driving and driving and driving, and I never found the school. And I said, I can't take this job, it's too far away. So I go back to him, and he goes, all right. He goes, one of these new schools, and so he put me at Hollywood Elementary as a first year teacher. I'm at the brand new school, second grade, and started there. Carl Allen was my principal, and a lady named Peggy Jones was my cohort. And those schools back then were all open. There weren't any walls. So I taught second grade, and Peggy Jones taught the other grade, second grade, and then third grade was here, and third grade was here, and we were all talking, and there's probably like 100 plus kids, It was crazy, and they figured out that wasn't the way to go, and they put walls in. But I worked there for 12 years as a second grade teacher, and then went to Crescent as a first grade teacher and worked under Donnie Shoup, who I absolutely loved also. And Jerry and I decided to go get our counseling degree, and so we're working on it. We had kids at the time, so we were working, however, and taking classes. We got our degree in '86, and then Raleigh County Schools opened up and had elementary counselors for the first time in 1989. And I was one of the first. There was only 4 elementary school counselors in the system at the time, and I was one of the 4 who started the program.
How long did you work?
I worked 8 years as a second grade teacher, 4 years as a first grade teacher, so 12 years as a teacher. And then I worked 23 years as an elementary school counselor. And then initially I had like 7 schools, and I would travel. Like, I wasn't very efficient because you couldn't do, you weren't there. And they kept hiring more and more. Sheila Lucinto was our director of counseling at the time, and they made it bigger. So eventually it worked its way down to where I only had 2 schools. And Sheila retired. And so when she retired, I applied for her job and got it. So my last 5 years in the system, I worked as not the director. I was like the person over the elementary school counselors. And so I loved that job. I loved it because I knew it. I'd done it for like 23 years, and I knew what I wanted it to be, and had some great counselors underneath me. And so I worked my 5 years and quit after 40 years in the school system.
Well, as a counselor, I'm sure you've seen a lot
I did.
With the kids. And the conflict management and all the different things.
We started that.
Everything. But and I know as many good stories, you've seen so many sad stories, and we hear about it now, Child Protective Services, and they complain they don't have enough help, and there are more and more kids in the foster care system, and it's almost reached a point the schools are raising the kids.
Absolutely. Back then, when we started in '89, there was always secondary counselors because, they did the scheduling and they were so important, everybody said or thought. And so when they hired us for elementary counselors, it's like, why do they need elementary counselors? They don't need counselors in elementary schools. But as we did it, they found that the need was really there, that if we could be more preventive, teach these kids social skills and teach them life skills, things they needed to know. Being a teacher first and then being a school counselor, I love going into the classroom and teaching, I would teach life skills to the kids and stuff. And the kids will still remember some of the programs I'll do. Yeah, I remember you, Miss Zaferatos, Free the Horses. I love doing that. It was a self-esteem. And it just taught kids how to like yourself, Yeah. And that was back in the 80s. Like, people didn't talk about that, back then. But so it was fun.
When you guys went into the real estate business, you opened up the United National. So you're a parent, you're a teacher counselor, and you're in the real estate business. How do you juggle all this?
I'm a good organizer. Let's see. We opened, Jerry started doing real estate in '88, '89, I think. I don't know, with Sigmund McLean. And so he was like already doing that. He goes, I want to be a broker. And he said I needed to be a real estate agent. So he got his broker's license in 1992, and I got my real estate license in 1992. And at the time, Dino, our oldest, would have been 12, Christy would have been 9, and Amy would have been 4 or 5. So we still had 3 young kids, kind of. But we'd go to the real estate office. I'd go to work, and then we'd both go to work. We'd both end up at the real estate office. I'd pick up the kids. They'd go to the real estate office with us and stay there until it was time to go home and eat dinner. And then they were all involved in sports. So we were either going to football practice or baseball practice or, softball practice or gymnastics or whatever. So after school and after work, we juggled it. We survived it, Wow. I don't know. My parents, the ethnic, we just were taught to work hard. And it carried over.
Well, let's go back just a second. How did you guys knew each other from very young age? When did you decide you wanted to be boyfriend, girlfriend?
Okay, so this is my story. So my cousins lived over on Berkeley Avenue, Berkeley, and Jerry grew up on Foster, and they connected. And my cousins, it's the Michael family, Diane, Valerie, Michelle, and Carolyn. And my grandmother ended up moving in and living with them. So she lived upstairs in their house on Berkeley, and my Uncle Freddie wanted to take the girls to Disney World and needed somebody to watch my grandmother, not really, just to be there. And something happened. She was older, and so they were gone, I guess, a week. And so I went and stayed there. I just finished my first year of college, and Jerry had finished his second year of college. So every night he'd come over, and we just sit. We knew each other, we'd just sit and talk, and nothing ever really happened. And so that was for a week. He hung around, and then he kept, his story will be different, but he kept hanging around. And our first kiss was in the Arabian hut in the basement. My cousin Sandy was baptizing her daughter Tiffany, and they'd had a big party. But you always like to have a big party, so it was a big party after the baptism. We're down in the basement, and so we kissed. And I thought, So I go on back to WU. He goes to Glenville, and being a coach or liking all that sports stuff, he goes, "Can I come up and watch coming up to watch the football games? Okay, if you want to get together, whatever." And after that, so we stayed together. So we've been together over 50 years, we figured, and our 47th wedding anniversary is in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So
now let's talk about your wedding.
Okay.
You're Lebanese and he's
Greek
and Mediterranean. And so you guys actually partied 2 weeks or so before the wedding. That's it
was my big fat Greek wedding, when that came out and we went to watch it, was going, yep, that's us. Except, I knew more of the ethnic stuff. It wasn't like the other girl that didn't, but yeah, we partied and,
it was like eating and drinking and dancing every night.
Lots and lots and lots. Like everybody, there were parties before, but then the weekend before the wedding, Jerry's mom and dad had a party Friday night at his house on Foster, and it was like a big block party. And then I was born and raised downtown Beckley. The house was right behind it was the old Army recruiting station, later became the police station. And so we had the house and had a big parking lot. And so my parents told the police, we're having a big party here. They said they opened up the restrooms so people could go to the restrooms at the police station. And there was probably over 100 people on the parking lot. And we had a band and played, and we, danced, and it was a good time. Good time.
It amazes me that your family and Jerry's family, the restaurant, the retail, that's a tough life.
Yeah.
You're talking about working hard.
Yeah.
And
the ethnic, they just knew how to do it. I think my parents would always say, when they came, my dad, coal mining, that was coal mining. Well, they didn't know how to coal mine, and they just became retailers. All the, my parents had the Kenny Jr. shop, and then my Uncle Freddie and his wife, Aunt Emily, had Freddy's. Aunt Butch had the Supper Club. Uncle Johnny had Johnny's Market. And then on my dad's side, Faye's Ramey had Ramey's Grill, and then he opened up the Columbia Grill. That was they had a big pool hall, and they gambled a little bit in the back, I think. And then when my uncle passed away, Uncle Faye's, my dad's younger brother moved from Lynchburg, Virginia, and opened up and kept Columbia Grill going. So that was still part of it. And then there
What was his name? Fred?
Fred. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, you took care of him.
I did.
When he got,
yeah.
You know.
He, back in the day, people really didn't divorce. And he and his wife divorced, and they had one daughter, and they got together some, but not much. But so after my mother passed away, and then 3 years later, my dad moved in with us for about a year and a half. And then after my dad passed away, and Uncle Fred was all I had. And so he like my youngest daughter, Amy, thought of him as a grandfather, kind of. He came to all the games and stuff. And when he got ill, of course he'd come stay with us. So he stayed with us until he passed.
When I was a kid, we would go uptown on Saturdays, and even if I didn't have a whole lot of money, I would visit. I'd go into Smokehouse for a minute. I'd go into Sportsman, Columbia Grill, just see who's shooting pool and eating, and go down the road, go through Grant's. Of course, you had to be at Murphy's, right. And go look at the pets and watch people. And it was just, we'd spend the whole day there on Saturday and maybe not have a penny sometimes, but it was
entertaining.
There's always something to do. And now you go uptown and there's not a lot up there. And of course, I understand the mall thing and all that, but I just hope that they could do some things now to draw more people to come in. And they're trying, we'll see how it works. But when you guys took over Calicinos, that was a huge undertaking. And you were still in the board. You were still doing the real estate. How involved were you with Calicinos?
Involved. So at the time, I was still our kids were older. We didn't have to worry about that. Amy was still in college, but the other two were gone. And so I'd get up, go to school. Jerry would go to the restaurant, so he was there all day and all night. And then after school, I'd stop by. Our middle child, Christy, was kind of like watching over the real estate. So after school, I'd stop by the real estate office, make sure everything was going okay there, leave from there, close it at 5, and then go up to Calicinos for dinner time. And we'd stay till we closed up. And we'd close up by 10. Jerry always said the vampires come out at midnight, so we never stayed open late. We didn't want it to be a nightclub. My thing was we were a restaurant with a bar. Yeah. I wanted to keep it family. And so we would close typically at least by 10 o'clock. So we'd shut down every night, and then we'd drive home, and then the next day do the same thing again.
Now, were you open 7 days a week?
My Uncle Fred would always say, don't open on Sundays, And so we did sometime. At one point, we were open 7 days a week, and then we thought, that's too much. So we did start closing on Sundays.
Yeah. Who named Greek's locker room?
Who do you think? The big guy. He named it Greek's locker room and had that big sign put up. And Jerry named it Greek's locker room.
That was a good idea.
Yeah, it was.
But, now that you're retired from the education and you guys are still involved with the real estate, how long do you think you're going to do this?
Well, you read this stuff like as you get older, you got to keep your brain working. So as long as we can do it, we're slowing down. Obviously we like to go and do things, but as long as I can give any input to anybody that asks me, I'll still do it. So. What
kind of music do you like?
I've learned to like the blues. I like all of it. I'm actually learning to like country a little bit too, but I like all the music.
Have you ever played anything yourself?
No, not at all.
Jerry needs an accompaniment.
Yeah, I keep saying I can pick up a tambourine maybe or something. Maybe, I don't know. You still have to have a rhythm for that, but no music.
What do you have on your bucket list? Anything?
Yeah, we bought a little camping van, like the little camping van, and just got it, and I'd like to go out west. We did a northwest camping trip a couple years ago. I want to do southwest. That's a bucket list thing. I don't know. Oh, we're going to the Army-Navy game. We're doing that for our first time, but again, that's kind of his bucket list, not mine. But I'll go. I'm easy, I just like to go and be around people, and I'm not hard to please.
Well, everything you mentioned is reasonable and
Yeah, not too
reachable
bad.
for sure.
Yeah, not too bad.
But when I worked with you guys for 6 or 7 years,
Yeah.
and you guys always treated me well. I never got rich, but I did miss the money when I quit.
It's not a bad income.
I enjoyed it.
Not a bad income.
And but I was always amazed at both of your energies. I just don't see how you continue to do it, but I'm amazed and impressed. And you guys have, I mean, we haven't even mentioned charities. I know you guys have helped with one time you helped with this drug sniffer at the sheriff's department. You helped with the international dinner for the Y, and you guys have you've been kind, and your the Michael, the Ramey, the Zaferatos family has contributed a lot to the history of Beckley and Raleigh County, and I hope that rewards will continue to fall your way.
We did. My sister Ruthie had multiple sclerosis, and she passed away at the age of 48. And my older sister Jean passed away at the age of 80 with multiple sclerosis. So I had two sisters with multiple sclerosis, and we did a couple of the multiple sclerosis fundraisers too, personal reasons. And I actually have two first cousins. And Eddie Michael, I don't know if you remember him, he passed away, multiple sclerosis. And then Carolyn has multiple sclerosis, Michael, but she does okay. So it's kind of weird that four of us, 4 people out of the same family, obviously it was a Michael gene that had that happen. But so, and then at Calicinos, just to mention fundraisers, we built a wall in the front part where Calicino, where Dominic's bar was. We built a wall when you first walked in and painted it pink and for cancer. And people, we were raising money for the cancer fund, but you could write your name on the wall or in memory of someone or in honor of somebody that had had cancer. And that was really, so it was all autographed and really cool. And they had to pay $10 or give a donation, whatever. But at least, so we donated all that to the Cancer Society. That was pretty cool.
That's great. Well, anytime you want to come back, we'd love to have you. Bring some of your cousins. We'll let them talk and share some stories.
Yeah.
We're always open, and I thank you for coming and talking to us.
Thank you, Wayne.
And anybody else out there would like to be on the program, hit me up at awbennett50@gmail.com, and we'll get you on here. And remember, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet, and God bless you.